determines man's moral condition, but also that the government has the responsibility to correct any kind of extreme economic injustice. In another discourse, the fifth sutta of the Digha Nikaya, the Buddha describes another kingdom where a similar situation erupted. This time the king, rather than instituting some measure on his own, came to his advisor, a Brahmin, to seek advice. This Brahmin, of course, turns out to be the Bodhisattva, the one who is going to become our Buddha in some past life. So the king came to the Brahmin and he said to him, "Now there is pillaging and looting in my kingdom. To counteract this, I want to punish the thieves. Should I do this?" The Brahmin advisor told him. He said, "If you try to improve the situation by instituting punishment, that will only deal with the surface symptoms. That won't strike at the underlying root. If you want to get to the root of the problem, you have to look after the well-being of your subjects. There are people in your kingdom who are farmers, who raise cattle and grow crops. To them you have to give feed for the cattle and grain for their crops. There are people in your kingdom who are merchants and businessmen. They don't have any money to run their business. That's why they're robbing. You have to give them capital to conduct their business. In your kingdom there are people who used to work in the government service as civil servants, but you're not giving them jobs. They're unemployed, so they have to steal. You should give feed and grain to the farmers, loans to the businessmen so they can carry on their trade. Give jobs to the government employees, to the clerks. If you do this, then all these men will stop robbing and stealing, the royal revenue will go up, the country will be quiet and at peace, and then, the Buddha says, the people, pleased and happy, will live with open doors, dancing with children in their arms." From this we can see that the Buddha gives very specific and practical advice on economic matters for improving the conditions of the country. Buddhism also tends to promote economic well-being in society by its stress on the virtue of generosity. The Buddha teaches all his disciples, whether they be monks or lay people, to practice giving, to be generous and bountiful towards others, living with open hands. The wealthy, in particular, in Buddhist society, have the duty and obligation to give to the poor, to help and to assist the poor. The things that can be given, these the Buddhist texts classify very minutely. The main objects are the basic requisites of existence: clothing, food, dwelling places, and medicines. Secondary objects include seats, vehicles, lights, books, utensils, and so forth. All of these get classified very minutely. But the Buddha praises especially the giving of food. He says that if people knew the value or benefit of giving food, the rewards they would get for themselves by giving food, they would not sit down to eat even a single meal without giving something to eat to somebody else if there is an opportunity to do so. He says that one who gives food gives 5 things. He gives life, as long life. He gives beauty or good complexion. He gives happiness. He gives strength, physical health, and he gives intelligence. Because the person who receives the food and who eats it, then his life gets extended, he acquires a good complexion, he feels happy and pleasure over receiving the food, he gains health, and his mind is able to function properly and to utilize its intelligence. And the Buddha says that one who gives food gives these 5 things, and in turn he receives these 5 things back. That is, the karmic result of giving food is to obtain for oneself long life, if not in this lifetime, then in some other lifetime. You obtain yourself beauty, happiness, health, and intelligence. All of this comes through giving. Then, on many occasions, the Buddha has given practical bits of advice to lay people on how to deal with their economic affairs. One time a group of lay people came to the Buddha and said, "Bhante, we aren't monks living in the forest. We don't know much about meditation or philosophy, but we need something that's practical, something that can help us right here and now, and also something that will help us advance in future lives. Teach us what is appropriate for us." Then the Buddha taught them 4 things that lead to happiness here and now. He said, first, the first thing that's required is energy and diligence. If you work at some job, some profession, trade or business, you have to be energetic and diligent in performing your work. The second factor is security. It is when you acquire wealth, you have to protect it carefully to make sure it remains safe. The third thing is good friendship. You have to associate with good friends, true friends, with virtuous people who will help you and protect you. Then fourthly, you have to maintain a balanced livelihood. You shouldn't be too bountiful, spending more than your means permit, and you shouldn't be niggardly, clinging to your wealth. But you should avoid these extremes and spend in proportion to your incomes. Those are the 4 things the Buddha taught leading to welfare here and now. Then he went on to teach 4 things that lead to long-term benefit in the future. That is faith or confidence in spiritual values, generosity, moral discipline, and wisdom. The Buddha also got down into the very practical matters of the right ways of acquiring wealth, the 4 standards of right livelihood to which the lay follower should conform. That is, he should acquire wealth only by legal means, not by illegal means. He should acquire it without violence. He should acquire it honestly.